Hey Eagles fans, this is Mike Kaye from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No Huddle Show podcast, where we discuss anything and everything Philadelphia Eagles. Except the Week 16 loss to the Dallas Cowboys, because frankly, it just proved what we already knew, that this Eagles team is not that good, and the playoffs were inevitably out of reach. Anyway, back to our shameless plugs. You can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, bookmark that, and you can subscribe to our exclusive Eagles Insider Tech service, where we'll break news, give you insider observations, and provide in-depth analysis. Through Eagles Extra, you can send questions and comments directly to us, and we'll respond to your phone. With me today, as always, is my fellow Eagles beat reporter, Chris Franklin. Today we're going to discuss Doug Pederson's future, Jalen Hurts versus Carson Wentz, and what we need to look for in Week 17 as the Eagles prepare to make some franchise-altering decisions. Chris, how are you?
I don't know how the heck to go ahead and follow up that intro before the shameless plugs you meant, but I'm doing all right. You know, had a finally digested what happened and yesterday, and now we get to look toward the future now, and it's kind of exciting. How about yourself?
Well, you know, we're turning to the offseason mode, where I think both you and I very much enjoy covering that. Look, there's one game left. I don't really understand why the NFL felt the need to make it a night game. I get it. You know, the NFC East is on the line for Washington, but if they lose, this is a real stinker of a game to close out the regular season.
Well, it's 2020, so makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, but now we're in 2021.
Oh, that's right, 2021.
We're about to be in 2021, man. Oh, thank the Lord. Anyway, look, as I brought it up earlier, well, in that intro, we're not going to talk about the Dallas game. I think, look, Jalen Hurts, let's summarize. Jalen Hurts didn't look that good. He looked like a second-round rookie. He looked like a guy who should have been available in the second round. He made some rookie mistakes. He did not play well. I think it's ridiculous that some people are trying to compare his failures to the failures of a fifth-year quarterback, but that's where we are right now with Eagles Twitter. The defense was horrific. Michael Jacquet was beat like a drum in coverage. Look, the offensive line had a lot of struggles. Matt Pryor had four 1, 2, 3, 4 penalties. Really, 4 penalties, bro. 4. 3 false starts and a holding penalty. Unreal. That guy is not only a liability in pass blocking, he's a liability in taking short steps. I don't really get it. But anyway, Chris, give me a summation of what you took away from the Cowboys game, because look, we're past this point. It just confirmed what we know. This Eagles team is not very good. But what did you take away?
I took away that this team really needs a lot of secondary help, and not just with the reserves. Even if those guys were the quote-unquote reserves, I'm feeling really scared if there's another injury rash next season, so I'm taking that away. And I thought that this offensive line finally buckled under everything that happened, and and Jalen Hurts, the teams are starting to figure them out a little bit. They contained him a little bit in the second half, and I think that's something that he has to look at, and the Eagles have to look at if he will be the long-term starter from here going forward. How he comes out at halftime and makes it and deals with adjustments that the opposing team makes. So those are the biggest things I'm taking away. But that defense, that secondary, I know they had a lot of injuries. I mean, minus Slay and Jalen Mills, that was just rough to watch. It was horrible to watch against those 3. I know Dallas has 3 good wide receivers, but that was just rough.
So are you saying that their primary focus should be on the secondary? So their secondary should be a primary focus?
I would probably say I would go like the year they go ahead and they drafted Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown, and Michael Lewis. I personally reserve right now.
I believe that was 2002.
Yeah, in 2002. I'm still going to probably look a wide receiver with that first pick, because I think there's just some talents you just can't get there. That like some really, truly genuine talents that you can go ahead and help this offense for years to come. But I'm looking at possibly my second, maybe third, maybe a 5th pick, looking directly at, depending who's on the board, looking at the secondary, because it is looking bad.
Yeah, rough beat. is all I'll say. I just think that, man.
Well, I'll ask you this real quick. I'll ask you this: if you right now you're sitting in Howie Roseman was replaced, and you know what, Michael Kaye, you're the new general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles. What direction are you taking in this draft? I mean, what areas of need do you feel like these teams should look at?
Well, I think early on you're looking at corner, wide receiver. I think. I know there's a lot of people that want to build out the offensive line, but I really just don't think they're there yet. They've got a lot of money due to Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey. Even if he retires, they could replace him with Isaac Seumalo. They like Jack Driscoll, who can play left guard, Jordan Mailata, and Andre Dillard are on the books. I just don't see them really investing heavily in the offensive line that early, even based on their philosophies. Defensive end, depending on what you do with Derek Barnett, who's probably going to finish the season with 5.5 sacks, which isn't ideal. And he's just constantly dealing with injury. Maybe you look into pass rusher, but I think if Jamar Chase is there, you got to take him.
Not Devonta Smith.
Well, no, Devonta Smith would be my second choice, but and then a corner, Patrick Surtain. I just think that guy's a baller. You've got Caleb Farley. The problem is I think it's harder to find cornerback talent than it is to find wide receiver talent. And I know that's not – I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous talking about this team, but part of me is like, do you spend the top 10 pick on a corner? I don't think they will. I think they'd go wide receiver over corner. But, man, I don't know. I don't know. I also think it depends on who's the head coach. I think we'll get into that in a second. But, I'm probably going wide receiver corner. I mean, this team needs a lot.
Yeah.
They need a lot. I do not think that they will draft a linebacker no matter who's in the front office with the top 10 pick. I just don't think that that's how Jeffrey Lurie thinks. I don't think he'll sign off on that. I don't think that's for him. I don't, there's no say. I mean, this top 10 is anchored by quarterbacks, wide receivers, and corners pretty much. And then you've got a linebacker here and a defensive end there. I just think if they're very rarely in this situation, and if you are, you've got to take a premium playmaker on offense. It's just how Jeffrey Lurie's mind works. So I would say Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith. But yeah, let's get into the head coach, because Doug Pederson spoke to us today and he seemed rather confident. I couldn't tell if that confidence was campaigning and trying to just put out his success out there as my kid runs through the hallway, or if it was maybe an assurance. I don't know who he would have gotten assurance from, but it would make sense, now that the playoffs are out of the picture, if he was staying or not. There's a lot of logic to that, because really this week means nothing. But what did you take away from his press conference? I know you had to leave a little bit a little bit before it ended, but what did you take away from his demeanor, his confidence, what he had to say?
He looked like he actually kind of sounded generally excited for the offseason begin. I mean, the fact that I thought it was interesting that he apologized to the fans. I thought, I think that definitely means there's like little nuances I saw, little intricacies I saw, like his demeanor, the way he was talking, everything. I think he's coming back. I think the way he's looking toward, he's excited about the offseason. I think he's looking toward what things he can fix. I think he already knows some of the things he wants to go ahead and fix anyway. But I think if it was a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, or if it was a read between the lines what I'm saying, or the type of conversations that he and the front office have had about his situation, I just think that he's going to be able to do. I think it's tough to find coaches who have been successful for an extended period of time like he's had. It's tough to find them. And I think Lurie was burned beforehand with the whole Chip Kelly thing and not knowing who you got coming in. So I think he's on his way back, and he's going to be excited. I mean, what do you think? I'll ask you this, since I'm still going to keep you in that general manager's chair, are you bringing him back next season?
If I'm not bringing back Carson Wentz, yes.
Oh, well, why is that?
I just don't see how the two guys can fix this. They've tried to fix it midseason. They've worked together for 5 years. It just kind of seems like this is a project where you have two competing minds and two competing abilities and two competing preferences, and it just doesn't seem like that makes a lot of sense for success. Yeah, I just don't look. I think when you look at Carson and the double investment this team's made in him, trading up to that number 2 overall pick, giving him that extension, you're looking at a guy that this team has really bought into. And I know they drafted Jalen Hurts, but really they've bought into Carson Wentz, and he's kind of hard to get rid of. Or he's not hard to get rid of, but internally for you to give up on him, you're not only giving up on a guy who you've bought into, but you're also taking on a massive cap debt for him not be there. And that's a two-pronged look that I just don't see Lurie and Roseman really feeling confident in. Now, that said, if I'm the general manager, obviously I can make the decisions for myself. But I just I don't know if Doug Pederson and Carson Wentz are really a thing. And Doug Pederson was asked today who his quarterback of the future would be, and he said that they weren't there yet. And I actually think that was very smart of Pederson for him to not kind of put that out there, right? So, I mean, you've got this guy in Carson Wentz who I think is redeemable, but I don't think he's redeemable by the guy who would be, shepherding him moving forward, because it's very clear there's a disconnect there. Are you willing to take the hit and, get rid of this guy and quit on this guy after you've invested in him twice in 5 years? Or are you going to go with Doug Pederson, the guy who, led you to a Super Bowl? Yes, but the team's regressed exponentially over the last 3 years. So it's like you've got to kind of figure out, you've got to do this mental gymnastics. It's a QB competition in the brains of the Eagles brass to kind of figure out, Lurie's got to ask himself a couple of questions. Can Doug Pederson fix Carson Wentz? If he says yes to that answer, you're keeping both. If he says no, then you have to make a decision. Do you keep Carson Wentz, or do you keep the guy who led you to your first Super Bowl? And from my perspective, if you're saying that he can't fix Carson, and maybe you don't feel good about him fixing the other guy you just drafted, then maybe it's time to move on from Doug Pederson. Now, I personally think that Doug has become a very stale play caller. I don't know if that's due to talent. I don't know if that's due to his quarterback's ability to read a defense, what have you. But it just kind of seems like the league has figured him out. Where are you on Doug Pederson? I know that was kind of like a jumbled rant.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. It was good. It was well thought out. My thing is going to be when it comes to Pederson, I think they need another offensive line. I know they brought in Scangarella. I know they brought in all these Morning Wig, and I know they brought all these guys in here to go ahead and do that. I think they just need a true offensive coach, and I'm all for bringing him back. I think he will be back. I think it'll be great though if they go ahead and got somebody with a different mind. I know Doug runs this West Coast or East Coast offense, and he has his philosophies. And they've incorporated some stuff. The one thing I really want him to see, and the other offensive coaches to do, go back, the ones that do come back, I want them to go out and start scouting all the other stuff that happens at college. I want them to start seeing the breakdowns, all the different trends and everything else. Because I think I wouldn't mind seeing the Eagles go ahead and incorporate some of these air raid offenses, stuff like that. Because you look around the league, look at the top offenses, you look at the Kansas Cities. I mean, his mentor has incorporated parts of the air raid offense inside of there, and they have these guns, they have these wide receivers who have come from colleges that run similar versions of this. You have a quarterback, if you go with Hurts, who can go ahead and run it because he was a part of that in the University of Oklahoma. And Wentz has the capability. He's smart enough to go ahead and know how to run that system. So if you go with Wentz, you can do that. I want to see this offense open up. The creativity wasn't there this year, which was very disappointing to see, given that the how heralded Pederson was, not only for his ability to take chances, but just the offense itself. So that's the one thing I want to do. I want him to go ahead. I want him to study to see what's going on around more on the college end. And I want him to go and do that. I think he has the capability to do so. He's a great motivator. The guys have been playing hard for him. Even with a 4-win team, they were playing hard for him. Even with the position of being a winning division, they were playing their butts off for him. He's revered in that locker room, and they're willing to do anything for it. And I think he's the option that needs to be forward and not going through another coaching carousel, because they're already behind the 8 ball when it comes to some of these other teams that have gotten interviews. So I just wholeheartedly believe Pederson's the guy, and I think he possibly could coexist with Wentz if the organization decides to go in that direction.
You look tired. I take it the caffeine, toothpaste, and adrenaline face serum aren't working? Well, maybe you should ask Santa for a Nectar mattress this year. And if the big guy brings you another unicorn finger puppet, don't worry, because mattresses start at just $499, and you get $399 in accessories thrown in, as well as a 365-night home trial and a forever warranty. Go to NectarSleep.com today.
Look, I think both Pederson and Wentz are redeemable separately. I've seen enough. Like, I've seen enough of them as a tandem, if that makes sense. Like, I don't. If I'm the owner who is obsessed with making enhancements to the offense, one part of this offense is clearly broken. And you know what? To Wentz's credit, the team has struggled on offense without him as well. So that's showing you that the offensive play calling isn't terrific. It's also showing you that the talent is not terrific. So maybe Wentz isn't the problem. Maybe it is Doug Pederson. Maybe it is Howie Roseman's roster building. That said, it is easier to look at this objectively and say, look, trading a guy who's going to give you a $34 million dead money hit not to be there for his least valuable like at his lowest value makes no sense. We've seen what Carson Wentz can do. Maybe it means he just needs another guru. Franchise quarterbacks are harder to find than head coaches. That is a fact. You're seeing a guy like Kevin Stefanski will the Browns to the playoffs or to 10 wins. Like, you can have success with coaches. And look, it's hard to find a Super Bowl winning head coach. But everybody talks about 2017 potentially being this blip on the radar for Carson Wentz. Maybe 2017 was a blip on the radar for Doug Pederson. You know what I mean? Our buddy from The Athletic, Zach Berman, brought that up in a recent article, and I thought that was a really valid point. This is a team that overachieved in 2017. I've said that several times on this podcast. They were not the greatest of talented teams. They weren't. They played well. They got hot at the right time. Things worked out for them. There was a bit of luck there. That's what you need to become a Super Bowl winning team, unless you're a program like the Patriots. And it just kind of seems like a lot of that luck and a lot of that luster and a lot of that magic is just like evaporated over the last 3 years covering this team. And, I got here post Super Bowl. So I came in with a sense of, hey, this team is going to have this new norm and they're going to play really well. And almost immediately you could tell this team was not as good as they claimed to be. They got lucky along the way at times again and made the playoffs and moonwalked into the playoffs in a bad division, and that's just what it was. So, look, I think I'm comfortable keeping either Doug or Carson, but I'm not comfortable keeping both of them, if that makes sense. Like, I get the logic in keeping Carson. I get the logic in keeping Doug. I do not get the logic in keeping them together. Where do you stand on that?
I think you can, and I think you can incorporate what you said. Like, you keep both and salvageable, and I think you just bring in another offensive mind. What was it? I think it was Graham Harrell would be a good name. I wouldn't mind if they can go ahead and reach out for that. I wouldn't mind seeing him. Sarkisian, if he's interested in coming
But that's the thing, though. Doug doesn't want to give up play calling.
Like, I think that might be one of the things that they're talking about. I mean, he was able to go ahead and help that. Well, I think you can be a CEO, head coach, and you still know everything that's going around there. I think Doug can. I think Doug has done it. I think personally, I just like looking at some of the way, like the flow of the games and the way that the play call. You're almost starting to get the sense like when he has control. Like when you look after the first 15 plays are scripted, you kind of get a flow. Like say, all right, Doug's flowing these plays. You kind of get that sense, and you got to kind of sense somebody else is taking over a little bit as well too, with just by the mix and the flow and everything else. I wonder as well too. I wonder if when they're having these conversations and they're going ahead and they're talking, he and Laurie are talking, he and Howie are talking. I wonder if they had those conversations where we go, hey, you know what? I'll give up play calling. I'll still look at the play sheet and I'll put my recommendations, but I'll give that play calling to somebody else. And if they bring in a guy, I know a guy like Lincoln Riley won't come in unless he's a head coach probably, and I don't blame him because he's got a good gig at Oklahoma. But if you got somebody like along those lines that say, hey, you want to come in and go ahead and use the offense that they have right now, but bring their own concepts and some of their own ideas into that, I think I kind of get the feeling that Doug wouldn't be completely averse to it, and I think he'd actually be open to it, especially if it means if he keeps his job too. So I'd go that, and I think that actually kind of, and if that went that way, I think you go ahead, you be able to keep Wentz. You go ahead and have a new fresh start. He hears another guy who has a guy who has had success with quarterbacks, and then you go ahead and you still have Doug there, who still is widely regarded among everybody else on that team. And he still be the head coach, and you basically solved all the problems that you had beforehand, and that offense could take off. So, especially with a training camp that's scheduled to happen now. So, I think all those things together, I'm more for the sense of bringing in a whole different new an offense, a true offensive coordinator, and not having a passing game coordinator, a run game coordinator. Let's segment everything. Just having say, hey, you know what? This is our offensive coordinator. He's going to be leading our offense. He's going to get things right, and then let everybody else fall into their the more traditional roles, and you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's plausible, but I just like they've constantly brought in all of these guys. Well, let's move on to the quarterback situation. So I'm guessing that you are in favor of a Carson Wentz reclamation project?
Oh yeah, I'm in favor of a reclamation project, and I want to give him the offseason, and I want to see a quarterback competition because I want to see how these guys are going to be under pressure no matter what. They both have been through pressure when it comes to going ahead and competing in leagues these last few years for Wentz and these last 4 games for Hurts. I think both of these guys, if you go ahead and give them an offseason, show us what you got. And I think a competition can only be a good thing, can only be good for this team, especially with going ahead what each person brings to the table. And I seriously think that Wentz has spent his time on the bench and he's sat there. I think he's observed Hurts to sees how the players have taken to him, especially when it comes to that communication part. The biggest thing it seems like we hear whenever we get on these Zoom calls with the players is, while Jalen Hurts knows how to communicate with us, Jalen Hurts is a great communicator, he's a great orator, he goes ahead, he motivates us. And I think that's kind of telling in a way, because how many times do we really truly hear that about Wentz? And I think when you start to hear hearing that, I think Wentz can kind of pick some things from Hurts. I think Hurts can take some things from Wentz, and they both go from there. And then you let the best man win. And if it so happens to be Wentz that wins or Hurts, you have a good young backup they can go ahead and keep in case Wentz gets hurt. If Hurts goes ahead and wins that competition out, you have to bite the bullet for a $34 million backup quarterback. And I'd rather have that than trying to go ahead and get like a potentially a second rounder or maybe a third round pick in this year's draft. And no telling if Hurts gets hurt, and we know Sudfeld may not be back, and then no telling who's the quarterback's going to be given the cap issues. And they draft another quarterback in a sixth round, because it's a QB factory, so you never know. So that's where I go. Where are you going with this?
I mean, look, I think that this is a tough situation to figure out. It's Jeffrey Lurie's decision. It's not Doug Pederson's. It's not Howie Roseman's. They can attest to what they think is possible. But for them to, I agree. I think if you keep Pederson, you're doing it with the idea that the relationship is either salvageable or you're running with Hurts. And I just don't know if Hurts has shown enough that you can say definitively this is the guy. I think I agree with you. Regardless of who is here, there should be a QB competition next year. There won't be a first-round pick spent on a quarterback. But I do think that whether it's Jalen Hurts versus a veteran or Jalen Hurts versus Carson Wentz or what have you, there needs to be some competition here. The issue that I have is with Carson Wentz, if you're going to have that competition and he fails, you've guaranteed him another $15 million in 2022 by keeping him past the third day of the league year. That is a really tough pill to swallow. That said, you're not dealing with the same, dead money hit, I believe, or at least effect, because the salary cap will be in a lot better shape in 2022, etc. But I think if you're going to keep Howie Roseman and you're going to keep Doug Pederson, I think you need to see what they can do with another quarterback. I think we've seen what this trio has been able to accomplish together. They've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and now it's time to kind of do something else. But if you're going to take one of the other guys out of the equation, maybe you can salvage it. I don't know. I don't know really where I'm at. Yesterday was a bit of a setback for Jalen Hurts. I was expecting him to struggle a little bit, but it was against one of the worst defenses in the league, and he looked like a rookie. I also am not of the mind that you should trade Jalen Hurts, because if you trade him for anything less than a first rounder and change, you're going to look stupid for wasting this past year on all of this drama. Like, they really need a very good return for him if they're going to deal him too. And I just don't know how you keep Doug Pederson, Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, Howie Roseman, and everything on offense the same. I don't think Graham Harrell's going to want to come here to be, undermined by Doug Pederson. I just don't see it. That's just where I'm coming from. I think if they're going to do that, you look at a guy like Jim Caldwell, who can really take a quarterback by the ears and really hone in on improving him. That would be my call. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air with all this now that I'm really thinking about it.
Caldwell's a good name too. I think he has a good history with working quarterbacks as well too, and he's well respected around the league as well too. So yeah, Caldwell's definitely a good name to keep in mind as well too. But I have no qualms. I just think they need that. Marty, if I had to break it down, I think Marty did a good job in making sure that Jalen Hurts got ready and got acclimated to the NFL game. I think he did a great job with that. Scangarella, I don't think he had enough. I don't think the injuries were. I think the injuries hampered the way with the zone blocking, the zone scheme concepts he had. And I think also that they didn't utilize the rollouts and the type of plays that are come from that Gary Kubiak type of tree. I think they didn't, in Gary Kubiak and Shanahan tree, I think they didn't utilize it as much. And basically, fill in effect, I think it was he's been kind of a waste and not nice guy, but I think it's just his impact has just been he was here. I think that's going to be the footnote for this season. And then Press is the wild card. I don't know if I know they think, we talked about how highly they think of him. I don't know if I'm a little questioning about, is he ready to go ahead and become the full-time offensive coordinator, especially given all the stuff that's happened this year. I know they've let him call plays, or he's been reported to go ahead and call plays. So it's I think you need a whole new outside voice. I'd keep Aaron Moorhead because I think he's doing okay with the receivers. And other than him and Press, who I think like I said, think highly of, and Deuce too. I can't forgive Deuce Staley, but if I'm another organization, I'm hiring him out and trying to, or offer him. He was almost lured away by the Bears to be an offensive coordinator. I think I wonder, and I question myself, and this is not going off of any reporting or anything else. I just wonder if he's going after this season because somebody's going to offer him an offensive coordinator job, like what happened last year. So I just think they need to make some wholesale changes on this offense, on that offensive side of the ball in the coaching staff area.
All right. So speaking of that, what do you want to see? Let's quickly wrap this up. And what do you want to see during Week 17 to show that this front office, this coaching staff, everybody should be a lot of the people should be back, what players should be back, etc. What do you want to see?
I want to see guys. I want to see how some of these young guys improve. I mean, Quez Watkins, he's looked all right. I want to see a lot of the young guys playing in there. I think that's a given too, given there's nothing to play for. I want to see how well these guys have improved from when we first saw them in training camp all the way to where they're at now. I want to see, since we know Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter, I want to see how he does well bouncing back after losing a big game like he did against the Cowboys. I want to see how he goes ahead and he reacclimates. And because there's going to be another week of tape that teams have out on him now, how is he going to go ahead and adjust? And I especially want to see how he does coming out of halftime in this upcoming week. And I also want to see how much this whole entire team actually comes out and fights in this game, because it's not often that we've seen lately the Eagles playing a last regular season game of the year where they're actually not starting their guys, because normally we see them when they're not starting their guys because they have stuff locked up. We don't see it when they don't have anything to play for and their season's going to be over. I want to see how much effort they put into this game and how well these young guys, especially the veterans, I want to see how much effort they put out there and how well they do in this stuff, in this game against Washington. I mean, where are you at?
I think my big thing is who's going to be active, who's going to be playing. Are they really keeping their eyes on the future, or are they just going through the motions? You know, I understand you want to get Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey out there when you had a shot, but are those guys going to be active this week? You know, what's the story with the offensive line? Are they going to continue to trot Matt Pryor out there and put Jalen Hurts in harm's way? How are they going to adapt? How are they going to use this so-called free play? I guess you could say it. And really use it to study the roster. Are they going to play spoiler? Are they going to try to win this game? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to get out of it? Because to me, I'm playing the young guys and trying to figure out what's going on here and there.
I wouldn't mind seeing that as well too. I mean, I may start the Rudy calls and seeing if Matt Leo gets called up to see and start playing, just to see how what he's doing. I mean, it's going to be his only game that he probably has a legit shot to play in anyway. So
he's not going to play.
That's worth a shot. I'll give her. Come on, can't you imagine? I mean, remember when we heard Jason Peters went into Doug Pederson's office and say, "Hey, you know what, Coach? I want to go ahead and play left tackle," and it was just all about that. I want to see Brandon Graham, and I want to see Ostman, and I want to see all the veterans in that one just line up one by one behind him in Peterson's office. Just go, Matt Leo can have my spot, Coach. Something like that. I know he's not going to play, but stuff like guys like that along those lines, Ostman and all those guys. It would have been nice to see too. He'll play, but we all know what happened there. But just see how far along they've progressed, and maybe Arcega-Whiteside actually dresses. Who knows?
Well, we'll have a preview, I guess, of this game coming up on Thursday. Remember, you can sign up for Eagles Extra on NJ.com/text. You can download the No Huddle Show podcast wherever podcasts are available. For Chris, I'm Mike. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, it's your delivered package. I'm on your doorstep freezing my cardboard flaps off while you're lounging in Bali. With Key by Amazon in-garage delivery, I could be safe and snug in your garage. Just link your MyQ account with Key by Amazon and hit free in-garage delivery at Amazon Prime checkout. Get your garage door MyQ connected with the MyQ Smart Garage Control for $29. Use promo code KEY30. For a $30 credit after your first delivery, visit myq.com/podcast. With Key by Amazon in-garage delivery, you'll soak in the sun, and I won't soak in the rain.